Hi guys, hope everybody had a nice Labor Day. This is just a remake of my first video of this car, which I wasn't really impressed with the quality of, so I thought I would redo it. Well, so this is my '02 Camaro SS that I bought about a year and a half ago. Been a great car so far. It's been my show car so far, these past 2 summers. Still taking it out. There's a good old Monty hanging out in the garage. Still my daily. And just as kind of a brief introduction for people that don't know these cars, these are pretty much 4th gen Z28s that were beefed up by a performance company named SLP that was based out of Michigan, that did a little bit of high performance add-ons to these cars just to make them a little quicker than the standard Z28. Standard Z made about, the last 2 years for '01 and '02, made about 310 horse, and these cars made at least 325. But there's something special about this car that makes it just have just a little bit more. Interior wise, black leather, kind of predictable of this era GM. Ebony leather. It's got the Hurst shifter on top of the 256 6-speed manual transmission. The Monsoon CD player for the stereo. Got 35th anniversary right there on the dash. Being an '02 is the 35th anniversary car. T-top car with sunshades included, which you don't really see a lot. A lot of people just, I guess, discarded them when they were new. Interior's in great shape though. Carpet's in good shape. I don't have the odometer on right now, but this car actually has 24,000 miles on it. I bought it with 21. Put a little bit on there in the past year and a half. Alright, I'm going to touch on the subject of production numbers and what makes this car unique, just for a little bit. And the first SLP option, which kind of sets this car apart from most others, is this center mount exhaust setup, which was only offered for '01 and '02, and supposedly gave the cars 10 more horsepower at the crank compared to the, if you want to call them, base SS's or even the Z28s. And it came with this rear valence piece that wraps around from the rear quarters all the way around the back here. And the exhaust itself, even though I can't necessarily go into the car right now, it's actually a 3-inch piece all the way back from the cats. So it breathes pretty healthy. Another thing that sets this car apart is actually its color too. And the color code, or the color name for this car, is Arctic White. And after Sunset Orange Metallic, this is the second rarest color for 2002 Camaros, period. Whether you count the base models, the Z's, and the SS's all together, this is the second rarest color that they were produced in. Now, as far as production numbers, just as a little sample, for all 6-speed SS's that were not convertibles painted in this color, there's said to be about 230-ish, about 232 of them produced. And that in itself to me is kind of unique. It's kind of rare. 232 isn't a lot. Now, a number that isn't taken into consideration is, I mentioned that 232 reflects non-convertible cars. What isn't specified is how many of those 232 were given T-tops. Now I know T-tops are a really popular option, so maybe 80% of that 232 were given T-tops, but that still reduces the number. And the other SLP option on this car were these chrome plated 17-inch rims here, and these are not the original tires. It's actually wearing Nexen N300s right now, but it is the correct tire size. This originally would have worn a 275/40 ZR17, which, like I said, it's wearing right now, but this is not the brand of tire that it would normally come with. Somebody just slapped these tires on as replacements. Not a bad set of tires, but to be honest, I've never heard anything good about Nexens, so I'm just going to, run these things, wear them out, and see what happens. Third SLP option on this car is the glossy SS grille that's on the front of this thing, and the true pieces either have silver SS outlines or they're red. I know black cars got the red outline because it should be the same color as the fender badge. Little bit of silver around the black there. Like I said, on the black cars it would be a black body with a red outline on black letters. And the final SLP option on this car that is probably the rarest, even after, even more so than the center mount exhaust, is this Blackwing intake. Now, although it has the SLP stamp on it, I don't know if you can see it, there we go. Although it has the SLP stamp on it from the factory, they actually sourced this from Blackwing and their performance company for making intakes back then. This predated the famous SLP lid that everybody loves to slap on these cars, and this was supposed to give another 10 horsepower too. So with the exhaust system and the intake here, there's supposed to be a 20 horsepower gain from the induction to the back of the tailpipes. So that would put this car at 345 horse at the crank. Now, this thing has never been dynoed, and I honestly don't know anybody with a similar setup as me, so I don't really know the output. Now, if I had to guess, this car probably makes about 320-ish on the dyno. If I had to guess, I honestly don't know, and I don't have any plans to put it on rollers anytime soon. So the intake, the grille, the wheels, and the center mount exhaust are the SLP options that make this unique. On top of the color that this car is in, you don't see a lot of white 4th gen Camaros, let alone the V8 models. And 6-speeds, nonetheless. Alright, so here's the power plant of my 2002 Camaro SS. Pretty typical. If you guys know these cars well, you already know what this is, but for those that don't, this is a GM LS1 5.7 liter V8. It's 346 cubic inches. It was the power plant for the 4th gen Camaros and 4th gen Trans Ams for the final 4 production years, being 98, 99, 2000. Or I'm sorry, last 5 production years: 98, 99, 2000, 2001, and 2002. This engine was derived from the Corvette, which debuted this motor in 97, and the following year GM had the brilliant idea of stuffing these into the 4th gen F bodies, which to me was a great idea. All aluminum block. It runs great. It's really torquey. Obviously, it's a cam and block motor. It's pushrod cam and block motor. It's not like the fancy dual overhead cam motors that a lot of other manufacturers were using for high horsepower applications in the same era. So it's a really good motor. It uses dated technology, but the funny thing is it's got a lot of torque, makes good power. If this was just a Z28, just a bare bones Z28, this application would make about 310 horsepower and a little more of that number in torque, maybe about 325-ish, around there, give or take give or take 5 or 10 here or there. There's different numbers left and right. But as the years went on, they actually made improvements, and when it came to '01, starting in '01, GM decided to start putting some LS6 parts into these cars, whether it be for to get the performance up, or that they just had, you know, spare LS6 parts left over from the Z06. So some revisions that started in '01 were the elimination of the front EGR here. Notice in the '01s and '02s that that's completely gone. It has a revised cam in it. I don't want to say it has an LS6 cam in it, but it's a little more of an aggressive cam than the 98s, the 99s, and the 2000s have. The cam's just a little different. If we're speaking transmission, the clutch in the manual cars for '01 and '02 is actually an LS6 clutch. That is a Corvette sourced clutch. It's different from the earlier LS1 clutches put in these cars. And when I was mentioning the SLP options earlier for these things, here in the final year we have this Blackwing intake for these cars that was only offered mid-year, starting in September. SLP actually sent paperwork and documents to the dealers of these cars, of the Camaro SSs and the Pontiac Firehawks, saying that beginning in September of '01, any orders placed could have the options, or the option of having this high-performance intake, which at the time was a Blackwing source part, and it would give 10 more horsepower to the motor. And these pieces are apparently hard to come by, something like that. I've heard these things being kind of valuable, but to be honest, the layout is pretty similar to the modern SLP lid. Now, I don't know, what I haven't compared is the opening here, the orifice going into the throttle body. I don't know if it has a larger area than the SLP lid does, but they're pretty similar in shape. And on a typical Z28, or even like a bare bones SS, if you were to buy one from this year, would have all this baffling right here next to the throttle body. Now, I don't know if that was part of some kind of some noise suppression goal that they had, or if it had to do with emissions, or some kind of environmental impact that the engine would have. I don't know why you would want to noise suppress a 5.7 liter V8. I don't know where that kind of thinking would come through, but yeah, so it has the Blackwing intake, and the '01 and '02s have little LS6 parts, little LS6 goodies thrown in there here and there to kind of give it that extra power. So when you hear somebody compare an '01 or an '02 LS1 and an F-body compared to the 98s, the 99s, and the 2000s, the '01s and the '02s actually do make a little bit more power, not an incredible amount. I think the base SS in '98 was said to make 310, and the base SS in '02 was said to make 325. So you're looking at a 15 horsepower bump in between, 3 years, between '98 and '01, that gap in between. So there is a little bit of a power increase. Now, also for '01 and '02 is, you can't see it in the frame right now, but underneath the throttle body is actually a power steering cooler too. So these cars benefited from a power steering cooler as well. So hopefully, I'd like to think that would help the pump out in power. But like I might have mentioned before, or I should have mentioned before, this car is probably putting about 345 horse to the crank, and I would expect like maybe a 20 horsepower drop at the dyno. So probably about 320 to the wheels, 325 to the wheels. It's pretty healthy for a car in '02, considering that, the technology. A lot of people tend to forget that that was, almost 15 years ago. I mean, this car was built 15 years ago. Speaking of which, its birthday here is October 1st, so this car is almost exactly 15. So that's the power plant for my 2002 Camaro and the Blackwing intake that makes it kind of unique. Thanks for watching my revisited introduction to my 2002 Camaro SS. Hopefully the quality turns out better than the original, since I wasn't really a fan of it. And for all you guys that like these cars and other SLP cars, whether they be the Pontiacs, the Buicks, or Chevys like this, I've got a Facebook page linked on my homepage on my YouTube account, and I might include it in the description of this video too, if you're interested in to follow that. And hopefully I'll be posting some other videos of this car and some of its documentation to help you guys that are interested in SLP history and kind of the history of the 4th gen F-body and its performance origins. So, thanks for watching.